Shalom and welcome. This is still your basic Hebrew reading course. I'm still Rabbi Don Levy representing Jewish Journeys, and you are hopefully still a student interested in learning to read Hebrew. Lesson 2 is all about you. In the first lesson, we began learning the formulaic beginning of most Hebrew blessings, the words Baruch Atah Adonai, blessed are you, Adonai. We started by learning the three letters, that is, consonants, and the three vowels that are used to compose the word Baruch, blessed. As you remember, those letters were Bet, having the sound of the English B as in boy. The dot in the middle of the letter, called a dagesh, is important. Without it, the letter would be a vet, with the sound of V as in Victor. This dagesh can appear in the middle of most Hebrew letters, but it only changes the sound the letter makes in three cases, of which the vet bet are one. Resh, having the sound of the French R, but you're going to pronounce it like the English R as in Robin, so why worry? Final Chaf, having the sound of the English CH as in Bach. The Chaf is one of 5 Hebrew letters that has a special form it uses when it comes at the end of a word. We'll worry about the normal Chaf later. The Chaf is also one of the 3 cases where the presence or absence of a dagesh changes the letter's sound. But let's worry about that when we encounter a Chaf with the dagesh. And let's not forget those 3 vowels, kamatz. The kamatz has the sound of the English A as in father. Grammarians would call this the short A. The kamatz looks like a small letter T centered under the letter. Shuruk. The shuruk has the sound of the English U as in truth. Note that, whilst the kamatz appears under its letter, the shuruk appears afterwards. It is one of only 2 vowels that work that way. And finally, shava. Whilst we do refer to shava as a vowel, in truth, sometimes it is, and sometimes it serves to show that there is, in fact, no vowel attached to the letter in question. The latter is the case in the word Baruch. The shava is here to tell us that there is no vowel. I imagine that some of this can seem confusing, but do hang in there with me. We'll take little steps, and eventually we'll complete the journey. And now on to our second Hebrew word. The second word in most blessings is atah. This is Hebrew for the pronoun you. It is the masculine singular form of you. Yes, in Hebrew, most words are gender-specific, but at least there are only 2 genders in Hebrew, masculine and feminine. Hebrew does not have a neuter gender, as some languages have. The first letter in the word atah is aleph. New students always want to think of the aleph as the Hebrew equivalent of the English letter A, and this makes sense. After all, the name aleph does resemble the name alpha, which is the Greek letter that A comes from. And like the A, it is the first letter in the language's alphabet. The pitfall of thinking of the aleph as Hebrew's A is that the aleph does not make a sound anything like that of an A. In fact, the aleph makes no sound at all. It is a silent letter. It is legally a consonant, but it has no sound of its own. Phonically, it only provides a place to carry a vowel. In a letter-vowel combination where the letter is aleph, the sound of the vowel is the only sound there is. The vowel accompanying the aleph in this case is the vowel patach. It has the same sound as the kamatz, like the English A in father. If so, why is it necessary to have both vowels? This is a question I frequently get from my students. The answer is that in ancient times, the two were pronounced differently, but in the simplified way that we pronounce Hebrew today, the two vowels make the same sound. So now we have a syllable, another open syllable, aleph making no sound, combined with patach making as in father. Put them together, and what have you got? That's correct, The next letter is taf. As you can see, in this case, the taf has a dagesh. The taf, however, sometimes has a dagesh and sometimes not. And whether it has one or not does not change how it is pronounced. It has the sound of the English T as in toe. If you have any exposure to public worship in synagogues, you will notice that some Jews pronounce the taf, when it has no dagesh, as an English S, as in Sally. If so, they are using the Ashkenazi pronunciation of Hebrew. The Ashkenazi Jews are the Jews of the European diaspora. Ashkenazi Jews are numerically dominant in many parts of the Jewish diaspora today. Even so, the Sephardi pronunciation of Hebrew has become more popular. We are learning the Sephardi pronunciation, that of the Sephardi Jews or the Jews of the Iberian diaspora. This pronunciation has become more popular because it is the standard way to pronounce Hebrew in Israel, the Jewish state. In Orthodox communities worldwide, the Ashkenazi pronunciation is still widely used, especially among the so-called ultra-Orthodox. The tav being a sav when there's no dagesh is not the only difference between the two pronunciations, but it is the first difference you'll notice. The vowel attached to the taf in this case, kamatz, we already know. The one additional element here is the letter He. You remember how, a moment ago, I cautioned you from thinking of the aleph as the Hebrew equivalent of the English A? Well, I make no such caution here. In fact, it might be useful for you to think of the He as the Hebrew equivalent of the English H. That's because the He actually behaves in a number of ways like the English H. In order to understand this, let's put Hebrew aside for a moment and talk about the English language. The H is legally a consonant, but it isn't always pronounced. When it is, it makes a sound like it does in the English name Harry. Sometimes, though, it is silent, as when it appears at the end of a word and is not followed by a vowel, as in the English name Sarah. Sometimes Sarah is spelled S-A-R-A without the H, but is pronounced the same because the H is silent. Likewise, the Hebrew He, when it appears at the end of a word, when it has no vowel attached to it, has no phonic value. It is not really a consonant at all. It is considered part of the vowel that precedes it. So in this case, the vowel is called kamatz with He, but is simply pronounced as a kamatz. Some students will want to somehow make that H sound, but there really is no sound to make. And by the way, that means that our syllable here, ta, is considered an open syllable. Since the He isn't really functioning as a consonant here, it doesn't count. But beware. If you leave it out, you've misspelt the word. I know, it just isn't fair. Well, life isn't fair. So our second word, ata, means you. Now you can add flashcards for ata and for the new letters and vowels to your deck for study and drill until the next lesson. I would like to add this. As an adult learner, you may be struggling with the slow pace of this course. I ask you to have patience. Learning a language as an adult is more difficult than you think. I've broken it down to small steps to help you through. Even though we might seem to be learning very little in each lesson, the knowledge accumulates faster than you expect. So this is your attaboy or attagirl for staying with us and finishing Lesson 2. Don't forget the flashcard making and drills, and we'll see you in Lesson 3. This is Rabbi Don Levy telling you Shalom.
השמחה חוגגת, יש לנו תורה, יש לנו תורה, יש לנו תורה, יש לנו תורה, יש לנו תורה מיוחדת במינה, בבתי הכנסת, השמחה חוגגת, יש לנו תורה.